Hey, what's up? This is the I.M.C. and welcome to the I.M.C Experience. Now, I want to tell you guys a story about my first job. Everybody's had a first job. Everybody's had jobs that they did not like or jobs that were a little bit overbearing, but I'm going to tell you my story. All right, so when I was in college in 29, no, sorry, in 2009, I started looking for a job. I remember the first, what you call it? First job application that I filled out was for National Amusements. For those of you who don't know what that is, National Amusements, um, they're a set of movie theaters, right? Right. So I went, filled that out, and nothing really happened or whatever. So basically, that took place, and nothing. I remember one summer I filled out over 30 applications. That was in the summer of 2010. Imagine you're trying to find work and you can't find anything. And then suddenly in 2015, I found a job. And this is like 3 years after I was already out of school. I had already graduated and everything. So I'm going to tell you how that happened. So I had a friend of mine that I knew from college. And basically, I told them about my situation. They told me, like, hey, our old manager is hiring. I'll see what I can do or whatever. So he was able to get me an interview with the guy, right? So he got me an interview with the dude, and the interview went well, right? And then after that, I had to go and take a drug test. I think the next day, I went to took I went to take the drug test. Everything went well, and I ended up getting the job. So I remember the first day that I had to work the job. I had to report and be there by 9 a.m. in the morning. So I remember that day. I went. I got dressed. I didn't really have the appropriate clothes or uniform that I needed, but I came in and went to work anyway. So I got there my first day. I'm learning how the register works. I'm getting trained. I'm learning who the associates are. And so I'm just taking everything in. You got to understand, this is my first job, right? And I'm working as a cashier. And I worked at Rite Aid. That's where I worked. So I remember that day, just going through stuff and learning how the process of the job was. And I think I had a lunch break, whatever, don't remember. More than likely, I probably did. And it was explained, 15 minutes, you can go and take a break, but a 30-minute break, that's lunch, you have to clock out. And so I learned all of that. And at the end of the day, when it came time to leave, I think it was like 5 p.m. or so, my shift was ending. So my manager was like, hey, listen, I'll give you a ride to the train. Sorry about that. All right, so yeah, so he said I'll give you a ride to the train. So we took a cab or whatever. I was getting ready to swipe my Metro card. He was like, "Nah, I got you." So he swiped his Metro card for me. I got on the R train, and I ended up getting back home. Switched over to the train I needed to get home, and I got home right. And so that was my first day, and I thought, okay, this guy is great. He's amazing. He's real cool. But little did I know that he had an attitude problem and a little bit of a temper, you know. So I remember I came in to do another shift, and this probably could have been maybe the second week. I come in, and my manager tells me, "All right, so you coming in at this time and you're leaving at this time." So my shift, I believe, started at 1 p.m. and I was supposed to leave at 6. One of the assistant managers, after he had left, she says to me, "Oh, where are you going?" I'm like, "My shift is done. What are you talking about?" "Oh no, you're here till 7 o'clock." I'm like, "What?" So I had to go and clean the mirrors and sweep and do all this other stuff, right? And I was a cashier. And she made some little comment. She was like, "Who trained you?" And I felt offended. I'm like, who are you talking to? Who trained me? Like, what is your problem? That's how I felt inside, but I didn't verbalize it. So that was it. Now I remember the first Sunday night that I worked an overnight shift. My shift was from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. in the morning, and I remember it like yesterday because I just started the job towards the end of March. I want to say 24th, 25th of 2015, and by this time we were in April. So I worked the shift. I remember I got off the F train, and I'm headed to my job. Get to the job, and there's this manager, another guy, short dude, probably maybe um, 5'1" or whatever. And I go in, I do my shift, I do some computer based training. I'm being a cashier, I'm helping customers out. I'm also stocking the aisle. So I'm doing all these different things, right? So when it's time for my break, and this is like at four something, I'm like, yo, can I go to break? He's like, nah, you do 15. I'm like, I'm going on my break. He's like, all right. I go, I take my 30 minutes, I go downstairs to the basement because the way that it worked, right? I worked in the city. So the Rite Aid that I worked at, the break room, it wasn't in the back. It was all the way downstairs in the basement. So that happens, and basically, I come back up. I'm doing my shift right now. This is like 4:30, I believe, going into 5 o'clock or whatever. My shift ends at 7. I'm getting ready to clock out at 7. Or I've already clocked out. As soon as it's 7 o'clock, my store manager walks in. He comes in, he talks to me, and then he talks to another associate. He's like, "Oh, you guys did a horrible job facing the store." And I'm like, "Wow, no good morning or anything like that. What's wrong with this guy?" So basically, he's like, "Oh, you guys need to fill the sodas." I'm like, "Where is that? What do you think it is?" I'm like, "Where's the sodas? What do you think it is?" The other older associate that's there, he's like, "In the back room, sir." Now, mind you, this dude is in his 40s, right? And this guy had been working for the company for about 20 years. Or maybe he started working in his 30s and he was 50 something. But I'm like, you're calling this guy sir? He doesn't deserve that title. You're old enough to be his father. But, because my manager was only a year older than me. So anyway, that happens. And my coworker's like, yo, don't worry about it. So I go downstairs, I take my stuff. I don't even talk to this dude. I don't talk to the store manager. I go, put on my jacket, I get my book bag, and I'm out of there. And the whole walk to the train, right? I go all the way down to the F train for whatever reason. I could have taken the E that morning, but my mind was just so flustered by the yelling and the disrespect that I was just like, yo, who is this guy talking to? And I'm going over it, talking to myself, and I'm walking to the train, and I'm just angry and I'm upset. And I'm like, who does he think he is talking to me like that? Right? So I go, I catch the train, I get the train, I transfer to another train, get a bus, I go to cash my check. As I'm going to the teller asks me, like, yo, what's wrong? I'm like, I'm all right, just got off work. She was like, rough day? I'm like, yeah. So after that, I go home and I try to get some sleep. So I sleep for about 4 hours. I wake up and I just immediately I broke down because it was like, yo, who is this dude talking to me like that? Like, why is he being disrespectful to me? I didn't do anything to him. So it was a little bit emotional for me at a particular point or whatever. But anyway, let's go on. Let's move on. So that happens, right? I remember there was another time I was at the store and a customer, since it was April, right? Easter was just around the corner, and we had these little Russell Stovers candies, right? We used to have these great buy one get one deals. So the guy came in, one of his Russell Stovers candy, but he wasn't getting the buy one get one deal, right? So he got mad at me. He's like, "You're blanking up." I'm like, what? Now, mind you, I'm a new associate. I don't know nothing about buy one get one. He does not have the preferred customer card, which was at that time the Plenty card. And I say, what? My one of my coworkers is like, yo, don't worry, I got it. And then after that, he says to me after the transaction, he's like, listen, don't let customers get you like that, man. Don't even worry about it. you know. But yeah, the guy didn't have his customer card, and I'm like, "Oh, what's wrong with him? Like, what's good?" But anyway, I dealt with a lot of customers. I remember there was this lady who used to come in, blonde hair and stuff. She would come in to get her menthol cigarettes. I think it was like either Marlboro Gold or Marlboro Silver, one of those two. So she always used to come in, and she would show her ID, and I'm like, this is not a proper ID, because back then that store used to take EBT cards, benefit cards. Management would be like, yeah, just take the ID. I'm like, you sure? Like, yeah. So I would do that. But there were plenty other times where there were other people that came to the store that wanted their cigarettes, and they'd be like, yo, look at me, look at my face, it's shaven, I'm 50. I'm like, sir, that doesn't matter. That really doesn't matter. I'm here to do a job. Why are you getting upset? Either you have the ID or you don't have the ID. So then after that, they would show it, and after a while, they would, some of them would be respectful to me and pull out the ID. Others would be like, "Yo, call your manager." I'm like, "All right, no problem." I called the manager, and manager deal with the stuff, and then he'd be like, "From now on, don't ask this one for ID. Just give it to them." I'm like, "All right, no problem." Uh, so used to deal with a lot of that stuff. But anyway, as far as it went with management, this guy, he used to do a lot of stuff that I did not like. I remember one day I went to take a 30-minute break, right? And when you're on a 30-minute break, you have to clock out. Now this dude gets the amazing idea to call me in to get on the register because now the line is piling up. It's like 10, 20 people. I'm like, yo, I'm still on my break. He's like, yeah, I know. I'll adjust it in the system. I'm like, all right. I jump back on the register, right? After I jump back on the register, whatever is left of my break, I try to take it. But by that time, it was done. But I remember early on when I first became an associate, I remember there was one particular morning. It probably was a Monday or a Tuesday. I had to go outside and I had to sweep the walkway to keep it clean so that the store wouldn't get a fine. In the summertime, I remember I had to clean the windows, and I would clean the windows with bleach, right? Like little spray bleach. And I would get these little holes in my shirt because of the bleach, right? Because I remember our uniform was navy blue shirt and khakis. That's what our uniform was. So I used to have to deal with that. I would have to deal with totes. Tuesday afternoons, matter of fact, Tuesday evenings, the truck would come around 6 or 7. Had to go prepare the bottle returns, put the bottle returns up on the conveyor belt, and then would have to bring the totes. That would be probably a half-hour process. It would be about me and 3 other associates and management out there bringing things in to the store, and I would have to pack it out, also go back to the register and do all that stuff. But yeah, it was just at times it was very annoying. It was very irritating because I used to feel like I was doing most of the work in terms of having to pack out, and everybody else would be able to go back to the register or do whatever. But yeah, I just remember. Excuse me, sorry. I just remember one of the things I remember at that job is that I used to hold my tongue all the time and not say things, right? And I would just keep quiet because I was afraid that if I spoke up or said something, that there would be some form of retaliation or I would get in trouble, right? At that time, I was 24 years old, young and stuff, 3 years out of college and got my first job. So I'm like, all right, I got to be on my best behavior. I got to, do what I got to do, even though I don't like this or whatever. So I remember one time I was on the register and I'm dealing with customers. And my manager says, "Oh, Paige," and I didn't hear him. He says, "Yo, did you hear what I said? Pick up the phone and Paige right now. Like, are you not listening?" And I'm just like, "Yo, who is this guy talking to?" A lot of stuff used to go down and whatever. Like, I remember one of my coworkers said to me one time, like, he must have been bullied as a kid. That's why he's so mean right now, or that's why he acts the way that he does. Speaking of coworkers, I remember my first overnight on a Thursday. I was working, and it was The shift was from, I think, 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. in the morning, right? And I remember there was this associate that I met, and I introduced myself to the associate. I was like, "Hey, how you doing?" This was their response. I'm like, "Oh, word? All right, I'm gonna stay away from you." And every Thursday night that I had to work with this associate, they always had an attitude on their face. And I didn't care to really carry on or have a conversation with them because at this point, this individual was just being mean. Well, I can't say that they were being mean. They were just rude for no reason, you know? Like, honestly, if you don't like a situation, you can go and leave. No one is telling you that you have to stay, you know? But I remember one particular night, I was packing out, I think it was some chips or whatever, in one of the aisles. And I was playing some reggae music on my phone, right? And I'm guessing that this dude was from Jamaica. And the person says to me, "Oh, do you know what you're listening to?" And I was like, "Yes, I know what I'm listening to." How dare you insult me and ask me a question like that? I grew up in New York City around reggae all my life. I grew up around different styles of music. Why in the world would I not know what reggae is? That's a dumb question. But I guess he probably thought I was just being ignorant, you know? But funny thing, years later, I was on TikTok and the same individual was like, "Hey, yo, this is what's the name for Rite Aid. I'm proud of you. I'm glad you finally grew out your ways. Grew out of my ways. What ways are that? First of all, you never talked to me or spoke to me, and any interaction that I had with you, was strictly dealt with work. The first time that I met you, you were rude to me. But I didn't say that. All I did in the comment section was gave a thumbs up because I was like, why waste my time and energy talking with somebody that was disrespectful towards me the first time that I met them? You feel me? So I just gave a thumbs up and that was it. But so I started off from Monday to Wednesday. I would work what you call it? I would work a regular shift from like 3 to 11, 2 to 10, depending on the hours I was given. And then Thursdays and Sundays, I would work from 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. in the morning, and then from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. in the morning. As time changed, right, my hours got changed. Like Sunday, I think I would do from 11 to 5 instead of 11 to 7. And on Thursdays, it was 9 to 5. And that was my shift. But yeah, management just used to do certain stuff that I thought was weird. I remember one day it was like, "Yo, um, I want a 24 pack of water," right? We had Polish Spring that we used to sell. We also used to have another brand called Big Win. Basically, they would give me their card to go and pay for the stuff. And I thought to myself, like, "Yo, why would you want to give me your credit card? Do you really trust people that much?" And to me, looking back on that, that was naive on his part because it's like, why exactly would you do that? You don't know what type of person I am. I could be the type of individual to go and just take your card and not give it back or do something devious. But it is what it is. But yeah, he would do that from time to time. Another thing he would do is sometimes he would call you up and he would be like, "Oh, hey, boss man, I got some hours on the payroll. So if you want to come in, I got hours." I'd be like, "All right." And then I'd be like, "Yo, there's a couple of hours missing." "Oh, I'll put it on the next check." This dude was notorious. And it's not only something he did with me, he did this with a lot of associates. He would ask them to come in. He would be like, "Yo, there's hours on the payroll." And his thing is, I need associates, so I have the money so I can pay you guys. But then when it came time to get paid, and imagine this is not a shift that we were scheduled for, it's a calling. When it comes time to work, um, to get the shift, not, I'm sorry, to get the check 2 weeks later, all of a sudden, "Oh, yeah, don't worry, I'll put that on the next check." I'll tell you of a situation to this day still makes me mad, still pisses me off when I think about it. So this was in the summertime. I want to say this was probably around June of, or it could have been May. Could have been May or June of 2015. So my shift was from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m., right? Left my house at like 5 in the morning or whatever. As I'm getting ready to leave, the manager's like, hey, listen, you're not going anywhere. I need help with inventory. I'm like, all right, no problem. So I go downstairs to the basement. There's boxes of Bounty. There's honey cough syrup for kids. It's just a whole bunch of stuff. It's a whole big mess down there, right? He has to get the place cleaned up for inventory. So around 7 something, I get a sore throat. And I ask this dude, like, hey, um, can I take a 30-minute? He laughs and is like, no, but you could take a 15. I'm like, what? So I go to the local pizza shop. I get some chicken soup and I'm sorry. Hold. All right, sorry about that. I'm back. All right, so I go down to the local pizza shop, and there they used to sell chicken noodle soup along with a roll. So I went and I got that. I ate that. I came back to the store, and I was just working. Mind you, now at this point, I'm sick. I got a sore throat. I have been working down the basement, a whole bunch of dust, right? But imagine, I left my house at 5 in the morning. I do not leave that place until 11:30 p.m. at night. Now, when it's time for me to get my check, mind you, I was only supposed to work 4 hours, right? Now, I was only supposed to work 5 hours. I ended up working 16. So altogether, I ended up working 21 hours. So when I got my check after those 2 weeks, I hit up management and I'm like, hey, what's going on with my check? Why is it that I'm missing hours? And they were like, oh, I got to make sure that's right and correct. Otherwise, that constitutes as time fraud. So the conversation ended and I never brought it up again. But I'm saying to myself, constitutes as time fraud. So illegally, you did not have, and let's put this into perspective, right? You did not have 16 hours to give me at all. You didn't. You weren't planning to. You never asked permission. You never told them, like, hey, listen, I have an associate. I got to pay them overtime. You never fixed that, right? So you're talking about time fraud, but you're the one that defrauded me of my money because you decided that you were going to get free labor and felt like you didn't have to pay me for those extra hours. So that was it. And he said the same old nonsense that he always says. Oh, I'll put it on the next check. One particular time I remember in the summertime, it was me and three other cashiers. He brought all of us individually into the office and was like, listen, the registers were short. You guys need to sign this paper. Now back then I was naive and I should have never signed the paper, right? But me, I'm thinking, oh, uh, maybe I need to sign this paper. And then after that, I spoke to one of the cashiers who, I had become close with, and they were like, listen, if you didn't want to sign the paper, you didn't have to. Because here's where the problem lied, right? Um, Management in that store never counted the registers regularly, right? So the registers were supposed to be counted three times during the day. Um, Early morning shift, mid shift, and afternoon shift. But in that store, they never counted at all. They did for whatever reason, they never liked to count the register. So that took place. Um, I remember there was one particular time where this dude dragged me to the AT&T store so he could get a new phone, right? So mind you, we go take a cab, go to the store. I'm thinking he's handling official business for the job. He's not. He just wanted to go to the store to get a new phone and takes another manager with him. And I'm like, yo, I could be working right now helping out customers and you guys have me in the AT&T store with you. I'm like, this is stupid. And I'm thinking to myself, like, yo, can't we get in trouble for this? Now, mind you, I'm following management. So I'm thinking that if I don't follow them, I'm going to get in trouble or whatever. So I didn't say nothing. And then after about 30 minutes, we went back to the store. because the AT&T store we went to was only about maybe 5 or 6 blocks away, so it wasn't that hard. Wasn't that far from the store, but it was still weird to do that. You know, the craziest thing I ever dealt with is I remember one day I came in to do a shift, and around 12 o'clock, the manager he gets a call from a customer. The customer wants Campbell's soup, right? Now at the store we used to have SpaghettiOs, Campbell's soup. We had almost darn near everything that you would have in a regular grocery store. So he tells the woman, "Sure, no problem, we'll get it." He calls me and another associate, the same associate that helped me with the Russell Stover's candy to give the guy the discount or whatever. He tells us, like, "Listen, I want you to go and search for this particular brand of Campbell's soup." And me and the guy went. We went on a manhunt to find this Campbell's soup. First thing we did was we went to 81st Street and First Avenue. We went to CVS over there. Couldn't find nothing. Then we went to Cristetti's, another popular grocery store chain that you probably only would find in Manhattan and probably parts of Long Island, and nothing was there. I think we went to one more store and we probably got something, whatever. We come back to the store at 2 something. We leave, no, probably 1 o'clock or 1:30. We left for like an hour searching. Come back to the store. It's 2 o'clock, right? Once it's 2 o'clock, I'm like, "Yo, can I go on my break now?" The manager's like, "No, you have to do these returns first." Mind you, my shift started at 8 a.m. in the morning. My shift was supposed to end at 5 p.m., right? After 4 hours, I should have already taken my lunch break. I should have taken my lunch break at 12 o'clock, but I couldn't because I had to go search for soup for an old lady, right? The store used to do all types of nonsense. Like, we used to have drivers come to the store and customers would make deliveries and we would go deliver the food to people that lived in the area. Just a whole bunch of nonsense. Now, mind you, let's get back to returns, right? Returns are the items that customers bring back to the store that they no longer want so they could get their money back. Sometimes these returns would sit in a bucket for about 4 or 5 hours. Now, I know um, there are people that have been there at the shift earlier than me. Management would not ask them to do it, but they would ask me to do it. So I had to spend almost an hour putting away returns from 4 or 5 little buckets, dump it into a big cart, walk around the store, do the returns, and then I would go on my lunch break, right? One on my lunch break, probably around 3:30 or 3 o'clock. Don't remember which time. And then when it hit 5 o'clock, I left my shift. And that was it. I was done. Another thing the manager used to have me do, I remember that particular summer, we went to about 2 different grocery stores. No, we went to 2 different branches of Rite Aid stores. One branch was almost near like the one train. I went there, did my regular 8 hour shift, and I remember I was in the cereal aisle. This dude is standing up, propping himself up against the aisle. He's drinking his coffee. He gives a little smirk. He's like, "Yo, you good, bro?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine." But inside, there's this rage that's burning in me. I'm like, "Yo, why are you standing around here while I'm doing all the work?" Then I would have to go to the register and go help out, and you know, and I'm just like, man, this dude is just standing here doing nothing, and I'm doing everything else. What really is the point for me to be here? So, as I'm working at the store, I do my thing. When it hits about 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock, I go to the local McDonald's. I go get myself some food, I eat, then I go and I come back. So yeah, I come back to the store and what you call it? I work, I help out customers, I cash out, all this stuff. When it's time for me to leave, I leave and we go back to our store. Um, I guess to do the final clock out or whatever. Then after that, We take a cab, and I catch the F train, and I go home. And I remember that night. I remember it took about an hour to get back to our store because we had to take this bus. The bus just took an hour to get back to our store. Took the bus, then taking a cab, and then I took my train home. Got dropped off with the cab, took my train home, and I remember that night I got home just in time to catch an episode of the Carmichael Show. And that was a Wednesday. I remember it very distinctly. That was a Wednesday. The sun was still out. The sun was just getting ready to set outside. You know, another time I had to go work at a Rite Aid in Astoria. I get to my job, right? Once again, I get to my job. Manager's like, "Oh, you got to go over here to this store." So mind you, I just wasted 250. The bus was still 250 at that time, 275 or something like that. So I go and I hop on the train. I got to go from the R to the N or whatever. Catch the N, get off at the stop, and I get to the store. By this time now, it's 3 or 4 something, right? I go, I help out. I remember what set this store apart from our store is the fact that they had carpet, right? So they had carpet on the floor or whatever. So I went, did what I had to do as a cashier, did my shift. By the time when it was time for me to leave, I left. There were no problems or issues. Most of the time when you go to other stores, managers get mad at you for calling them because you need approval and all this stuff, right? We used to deal with biometrics, so that's how sometimes I would sign in. I would either do biometrics or I would physically sign in and type in my name and um my associate ID or whatever. So I left, and then there was another time I came to do my shift and I got sent to a store on First Ave, another Rite Aid store. And this store was what actually wasn't as busy as our store. It was very quiet. Customers came in every so often, and I did my shift. You know, I remember there was one security guard that was there, black dude, and then after that, there was a young kid that worked with me. Um, and it was an easy shift, right? They needed help. They didn't have any associates, but this store really rarely had customers, so it was very quiet or whatever. So I went, did my shift, and as I'm on the bus going home, right? As I'm on the bus actually trying to get to my train, we passed my store at like 11 something. So I got off where I needed to, and then I caught the train, and I went home. Um, Another time I had to work at another store. This one was near the George Washington Bridge. But the good thing about this was that it wasn't during the day, it was during the night. My shift was from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. in the morning. I went there. I remember the cashier was this Hispanic lady. She was just very rude and disrespectful. Like, for whatever reason, she didn't like me or whatever, right? For whatever reason, she didn't like me, right? Don't understand why. I remember there was a couple that came that night to shop the store. I think they bought some diapers, and then after that, they left. And there was some other people. The store was fairly quiet, right? The store was fairly quiet, right? So every so often, I would go do shelf maintenance on the shelves. I got myself a little Gatorade. That was my a little indulgence that I used to have. Like I used to buy 2 Gatorades at the store. I would put them in the freezer to chill, and then I would take them with me when I went home. I would go buy the stuff, chill it in the freezer. Then before I left, take it. And I always used to put my receipts around the product because I remember at my store, asset protection would be like, listen, if you don't have a receipt around your drink, management is going to think that you're stealing it, and then you're going to get fired for it. So I was like, all right, well, I might as well wrap this thing around. So I used to, get the little tape because we had tape dispensers. Get the little tape, wrap the receipt around the drink or the product I was eating, and that was it. So I did that shift, and I remember that night. It was a hot summer night. So at 5 o'clock, I'm getting ready to leave. Manager was like, Oh, I thought you were leaving at 7 something. I'm like, no, I'm leaving at 5. And they do a little, I was like, oh, okay, all right. Have a good day, miss. I went, caught my train. I remember I was on the E train and I think I almost fell asleep. Thank God I didn't miss my stop. By the time I took my bus to get home, I was in and out of consciousness. Like every 3 minutes, I was opening up my eyes. That's how tired I was. And I remember at our store, I remember we got an extra manager that year. Um, you know, it was this like the sister with micro braids or whatever. She was cool. As a matter of fact, she was one of the most chill managers out of all the assistant managers that were there. She was the one that was the most chill, you know. But I remember she never used to like to follow procedure. So sometimes she would dress in a way that was a little bit inappropriate. I don't think anybody ever said anything, but she was at the store for about a month, and then I don't know what happened if she got fired or left. But yeah, there were a lot of things I dealt with working at Rite Aid. I remember one of the overnight managers. You know, the guy was cool. He was alright, but he had his own little issues that he was dealing with. I remember one time he was on the phone with the mother of his child. They're going back and forth. He's like, "Yo, if you need me, call me on the walkie-talkie." So about 4 different times in a matter of 30 minutes, I called him. He got mad. He was like, "Yo, what do you want?" Like, I need approval for this. He would go give approval, go right back out of the store, talk on the phone, and I'm just like, "What's good with you? Like, you all right? Like, what's your problem?" You know. Eventually, um, and I want to say about months later, because this is like summertime, right? Months later, he ended up getting fired because he was taking money from the register and then trying to make up the difference of the bottle returns. You know, he got let go. But I remember one night I was working overnight. This dude bought a bottle, or he did a store use. He bought a bottle of special case. He bought a box. I'm sorry, special case cereal, and took some soy milk. He's like, "Yo, y'all want cereal?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And we had cereal that night. This was like, this is like just when I started in April or whatever. But the other situation that happened close towards the summer. But yeah, it was a lot of weird experiences that I dealt with. You know, I remember the last time I went to go help out a store under this manager was I think it was in the fall of was it in the fall of 2015? Or maybe a little bit before that. I remember I had to go to a store that was being renovated and I had to be, I was cashier or whatever. I went, did my shift. When I took my break, I went to this pizza shop across the street. Like it was a bit the area that I went to go work in that day was a very busy area. Very busy. Yeah, so it was a very, very busy area. Did my shift and then I went home. Um I remember one particular time I actually had to work a Saturday night shift from 7 something till about 12 o'clock or whatever. And I went and I spoke to one of the managers and I was like, listen, I don't work on the Sabbath. He's like, oh, nah, you got to talk to the store manager, you know? And ever since that time, they never put me on a 7 o'clock schedule. Mind you, I'm at church and I'm like, yo, I got to work on the Sabbath. Like, I had to work at 7 o'clock. I literally had to go home, get dressed so I could work for like 5 hours. And I was pissed because in the interview, I had already told them about my religious observance and they decided to disregard it. But after I talked to the manager about that, when they put me on that schedule, he never put me on the schedule again after that, on that particular day. But yeah, it was just so much stuff that went on in the spring of 2015. You know, a whole lot of stuff. I remember the last day I saw the manager. It was Labor Day, and I'm getting ready to get off the register because I have to go to this barbecue that my friend invited me to at her house. The manager's like, "Listen, can you stay a little bit longer? I need help and assistance." And I told him, like, "I'm sorry, I can't stay. I have something to attend to." He goes and says, "All right, well, when you need extra hours, don't ask me." I was like, "Okay." Imagine this threatening me, saying that you're not going to give me hours. But here's the thing: anytime you gave me hours, you didn't put it on my check, you put it on the next check. So you always used to cheat me anyway. So what was the deal? What what was the point of saying that? So that was it. And I remember that was the last time I saw him. That was on a Monday. The next day was a Tuesday. I was off. Then I came in on a Wednesday and I saw the new manager. The new manager of the store was busy, right? And stuff. So they didn't have time to say hi or whatever. And I could just tell like things just seemed a little bit off. So as I'm, starting to do my work and whatever, I handle business. Assistant managers obviously are there to help out and assist. But before the new manager came in and the old manager left, I used to, for the whole summer, I was working from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. The reason why that happened was because I had a coworker who went on leave, right? Her daughter had just had a child, so she was going to assist. And so they gave me her hours. Once she came back, they gave me closing shift 3 to 11. I was so mad, but I was like, fine, I'll take it. Because I couldn't change it. They gave me her hours temporarily, which helped me because I actually liked working in the morning. But once that changed, I was like, all right, fine, I'll work these hours. But I remember when the new manager came in, they would use me to their advantage, like in terms of, oh, do this, do that, that type of stuff, sweep, you know. I remember one particular time, like a year later, like I guess the manager one day he dropped soft soap on the floor. Like it didn't spill, but like it was still in the bottles, but he dropped it on the floor. And he was like, "Oh, can you pick that up?" Mind you, he dropped it. So he could have picked them up. But he decides he wants me to come from around the counter and clean it up. And I don't know if I told him no. I said something that then he had a reaction. I had to go on my hands and knees and pick up the soap and put it back in the little container that I was sitting on. I remember another time a customer spilled a bottle of soap on the floor, like a whole thing. I had to go get the mop and clean it up myself. Nobody else did that. And the manager that time didn't ask me to do that stuff, but I had to go do it. But here's the thing. Like management knows who are the go-to people and the people that are not, right? Since I wasn't outspoken, it was like, all right, you're gonna do this, you're gonna do that. I remember there was a time, like for a year, and this is before I got transferred to another store. Um, I literally did not take lunch on a Tuesday. And the crazy thing about it is I didn't take lunch and I would just do the truck. So I would do the truck all shift. I didn't take my lunch. I wouldn't eat until I got home. But sometimes I would wait till I got to where I was and I would buy something. So basically I used to do the totes. I used to be on the register. I never took a break, right? And here's the thing, right? You're supposed to take a break all the time, right? Hold on. Sorry about that. So yeah, you're supposed to take a break all the time, right? Because if you don't, it's illegal. But if no one is really checking, no one's gonna care. So I remember there were a few times I had gotten in trouble with the manager. I remember a customer came in and I was cleaning off the counter. There was like a little circular that was there on the counter. It wasn't like a whole stack of circulars, just one circular, and it landed on the customer's foot. And I was like, I'm sorry. They were like, oh no, don't worry about it. It's all right. This was a Sunday afternoon. Monday morning, no, Monday afternoon, the manager calls me into his office, and someone left a comment on Google, and he says like, "Oh, customer says you wiped something onto their foot. You dropped a circle on the foot." I'm like, "Yeah, I was cleaning off the register. I didn't see them coming because, like, here's the thing, right? When we have our registers, you have that little space where you can go and put stuff in. You go and scan like that little area. So it wasn't intentional. Another time, I got in trouble because I told a customer not to put bottle returns on the counter, which you're not supposed to do. So the manager calls me into the office and is like, "Oh, you made this customer feel less than." I'm like, "What do you mean I made them feel less than? They're not supposed like. First of all, that's a whole bunch of germs, right? Like, I don't mind anybody getting their bread. You got to do what you got to do, but you're not supposed to put that on the counter. And every time that they would put that on the counter, I would have to go and clean it. I'd have to go and get disinfectant and stuff like that. And it's like that's a waste of time. Why do that? Another time, I was called into the office. The manager was like, "Oh, I noticed that you're clocking in 3 minutes early. I would appreciate if you clocked in exactly at the time you're supposed to be here." I was like, "Okay." Now, mind you, he was telling me this, but the associate that used to work overnight with me would clock in at 11, dress downstairs, and would not come up until 11:10. And sometimes that prevented me from leaving. So if I was supposed to be out at 11 o'clock, I would leave at 11:10 because the associate would take so long. So I'm saying, like, you have a problem with me clocking in 3 minutes early, but you have an associate that is clocked in for 10 minutes. It doesn't come up until that time. But I was like, all right, whatever, I'll do it. But yeah, I used to get called to the office. It seemed like I always got in trouble. There was one time I got in trouble with customers because I slammed the register, and I was in the wrong. I will admit it. Um, like, for whatever reason, they wouldn't let me put the change in the hand. It was like, yeah, put it on the counter. They like, and here's the thing, right? This took place in 2015, 2016, 2015, a year before. They were so nice and sweet, but it's like they had a disdain for me, and I could tell. So they went, put their money on the counter, and that was it. And then I slammed the register. They called the manager out there. I got in trouble. Then after that, like 2 days later, they came back to the store. They were like, "Oh, you want to be friends?" Oh, I had to apologize to them. But every time after that, they just treated me with more disdain, right? And then I remember the last straw was in 2016. Sorry, was in November. No, December 2016. It was early December. And the customer's daughter came by, right? It was a mother and daughter duo that always used to shop at the store. And they came by, and no, the daughter came by. I gave the daughter change in one hand and cash in the other, and gave her her receipt and left. And when she didn't say thank you, I said, "You're welcome." And there were like 10 customers behind them. This woman stands in the corridor of the entrance, talking on the phone. And I'm just like, I don't know what's going on. 10 minutes later, her mother comes to the store and says, "It seems like we're going to have to go over to this again." And said, like, "Oh, you're not supposed to get mad with her." And that just started a whole argument. Mind you, I have customers lined up. All of a sudden, the assistant manager that was there, she saw what was going on. She was like, "Go, go, 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 go." She tells me to go off the register. I go walk in the back, and I take a break. Mind you, I had been on the register since 3 p.m. in the afternoon. By this time, it is like 10 something, and my shift is supposed to end at 11. And so after that, that was it. Then around 10:25, the husband comes to the store, and the husband is usually cool because he goes, he gets his Marlboro Gold. He doesn't bother anybody. He doesn't, you know what I mean? He's a real cool guy or whatever. So he says to me, "What happened?" I'm like, "Yo, your daughter came here. She bought something. I gave her a change of money, and the next thing you know, she brings your wife here, and they start yelling in my face." He's like, "Listen, if me and you have a disagreement, it's fine, but you don't argue with women. With women." And the thing is, yeah, you're right, you're right. And here's the thing, right? I already realized no matter what I told him, he wasn't going to defend me. Like he knew his wife and his daughter were wrong, but I wasn't gonna win either way. The next day I come to the store and the store manager is like, hey, listen, I want you to bring some totes upstairs. I was like, all right, no problem. So I go bring up some totes. I start packing out. Everything is all good. I'm packing out stuff, right? All of a sudden, I go down to get a second set of totes. He's like, hey, we need to talk. Brings me downstairs to the basement with a different assistant manager, the one that was not there during the nighttime when the situation happened. And this other manager, I didn't really like that much because they were just always very rude to me for no reason. I never, let me tell you something. I always said hello to every manager that was there, no matter how disrespectful they were towards me, because that environment, I understand it was very stressful, but it was just a lot of stuff going on that didn't need to be. But yeah, so he tells me, the store manager is like, oh, the woman called the blank CEO of Rite Aid on you. I'm like, what? And then he says, oh, why did you say you're welcome if she didn't say thank you? I said, I didn't say that, but I was scared. You got to understand, this is a 6 foot something dude, you know? And I was just really scared at that point. And then after that, he calls me upstairs to the office. No, he brings me to the office and he says, oh, the lady said you threw change at her. I'm like, I didn't throw change at her. I gave her stuff in her hand, change in one hand, and the bills in the other. He says, I want the blanket truth. I'm like, I am telling you the truth. And then after that, you know, I'm on the register or whatever. And I asked him, like, yo, do you want me to do toast tonight? He's like, no. Like, he was just really upset about the whole situation, right? And honestly, I could have handled that better. I could have called my assistant manager and been like, hey, a situation's going on, and I could have left. But I just had to have that argument with them. I'm not saying that I wanted it. It's just I wasn't thinking at that time. So that happened. And the crazy thing about it is that I could have gotten fired over that. So the next day, which is a Wednesday, I come into the store and the district manager is there. And I explained to him what happened. He was like, boy, we're going to, he's like, wow, that's a lot. He's like, we're going to transfer you to another store because it seems like these people have it out for you. Mind you, I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't curse out this lady or her daughter. I didn't say anything out of whack. But I got removed because of an argument, right? And also, I guess because of the fact that of an altercation that had taken place 2 months earlier, even though I didn't say anything physical. It was me slamming the register. Well, they got offended by that, and I can understand, right? So I had to go and write a statement. The manager comes downstairs with me to the basement. He's like, yo, I'm about to lose my best cashier over some nonsense. And he says, oh, if you mess up, that's it for you. I'm like, your best cashier? Really? The whole year that you were at that store, you showed me nothing but disrespect. You didn't even treat me like I belonged. You didn't even make me feel welcomed at the store. You want to talk about your best cashier. Now, mind you, about a month earlier, this man accused me of stealing money in Western Union transactions, asked me, oh, if you know where the extra money is, let me know. Then you bring in asset management 2 days later and you double the amount, and they say, oh, your manager says that XYZ was actually missing. I'm like, what? Then I get accused of stealing bottle returns, being interrogated for an hour in the basement, away from the register. And I felt so offended because it's like, what would I need to do with Western Union transactions? Why would I want to steal money? You think I would be that stupid enough to do that? But that's what I was dealing with. That's what I had to go through. And I dealt with it, even though I was offended and stuff. So going back to that statement of him losing his best um, manager. No, sorry, him losing his best cashier. I was like, ugh, that just seems weird. So when that happened, that same day I came into work, I left around like 3:30 or 4 something, and I walked to the other Rite Aid store. The other Rite Aid store was 16 blocks down. Now, mind you, it was raining that day. It was a Wednesday. I was so unhappy. I was so depressed because it was like, man, I had only been at the store for a year, and all this trouble happened because of me, because I didn't walk away. But I'm glad that I did not lose my job. They saw fit to just transfer me somewhere else. So I get there to the other store, and one of the things I noticed is that I don't have to wait for an associate to come back to the register. If I want to go on break and eat, I can go on break. Everything was just so different. It was more peaceful. There were younger managers. One of the managers there, the store manager, he was a little bit older, but I felt so much peace at that store. And I worked at that store for probably about a total of 4 months. So I remember the night after I got out and I finished my shift, I walked back to the other store and I came in to say hello. And the assistant manager, she was like, I'm so sorry about what happened. I'm like, I know, it's all right. She tells me that when she told these people I was gone or that I was fired, right? Because that's the story they had to give, that they were clapping, rejoicing, that they were happy that I was gone from the store. Somebody else also told me that these ladies wanted to call the police on me for harassment, even though I had never harassed them in my life. But that was how much they hated me, right? So another time after that, I went and I visited the store to go and say hello, but I couldn't stay in for long because if I did, God forbid I did, those people would still know that I was working somewhere and then they might try to call police on me or whatever. So I left the next time I came in. And the next time after that, I didn't visit for a while until I had actually quit the job. And I left because an associate threatened me. I was taking out garbage one day, and I guess the store manager had wanted me to take out garbage, and I was annoyed. Like, yo, like, why am I doing this? And then after that, the associate came up and was like, oh, what you said? I'm like, I'm not talking about you. I was talking to my manager. I'm not talking about you. They was like, oh, yeah, all right, all right. So the next day, I gave him my 2 weeks. Dumbest thing that I ever did because I could have just gone to management and reported that associate. But by this point, I had grown tired of that job. I got tired of traveling every day for an hour and a half to work. It was just too much stress mentally, emotionally, and physically for me. So I was like, that's it, I'm done. And I left in April of 2017. Got my last few checks. That was it. I spoke to a coworker one day and, you know, she was like, "Oh, we felt bad when you left and all that." I'm talking about an old coworker from when I was originally at the first store. So it was a lot that I went through in terms of that. I had a lot of growing up to do. I realized in certain ways I was wrong in how I handled situations. I realized I could have handled things better, right? I could have, controlled my temper, a lot of different things. But I also learned that I could have gone to HR with certain issues, especially when it dealt with money or if I felt I was being treated a certain way by management. And the problem is that a lot of people don't speak up. Normally, if you have a problem or an issue with management, you go and talk to them. But the way things were set up in that environment, I never felt safe. Now, obviously, there was a time when we had a meeting. It was our store and two other stores that got together and we talked about, listen, you can call this number. Don't worry about retaliation or anything like that. And we just talked about a lot of different stuff about how to deal with customers, how to deal with associates, just a lot of different things. And I learned that I could have spoken up. Where I am now, at the job that I'm at, I actually feel more free to have conversations with management if I need to, and not feel like there's going to be some form of retaliation if I say something or speak something that I'm feeling or going through, right? Because open dialogue is encouraged. It's usually if there's an issue that's going on, you talk to your department head first. If you can't get through to the department head, you go to assistant manager, then management, and the next step is HR. But there was a lot of trial and error at that job. I'm grateful for that experience, but I would never want to go through it again because it was just at times it was too much. Like I said, I was never the perfect associate. I made a lot of mistakes while I was there, but I also learned a lot of things too. I learned that you can't always get things your way. I'll give you one more example. So in 2015, I used to go to this hip hop competition, and the competition was always held once a month. I want to say probably on a Wednesday or so. So up until September 2015, like the competition started December 2014. This is before I had a job, and then I got the job, and I was going to this competition like crazy. So my shift was 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. What I would do was I would go catch the train and go all the way to the competition. I wouldn't even go back home. I would go straight from my job to the competition, do it, had my beats, emailed them in, and that was it. I didn't win, but it was just fun being there and people being able to hear my work. When that woman came back off of her leave after helping her daughter and my hours got changed, I never went back to that hip hop competition. And I haven't gone back. I haven't actually been back in 10 years, you know? But yeah, so while I enjoy, and here's the thing, right? The competition would end at 10 something. I would leave at 10 or 11 o'clock, right? Get back home. I wouldn't get back home until 2 o'clock, and I would have to be up at 5 a.m. to work at 8 and just do the whole thing all over again. And I would have to make sure um, that I didn't oversleep or overslept, right? But yeah, it was a lot mentally and emotionally, you know, a lot of things you have to give up and sacrifice when you start working your own job. You may not be able to hang out with everyone that you want to, family, just small things, right? I remember the first Thanksgiving I had to work. I was I wasn't mad or anything like that. I was just like, man, like I gotta go to work. And you're looking at the store across the street, barely anybody's there. Everybody's home preparing for Thanksgiving. But I remember a customer came and brought me some food that day. So I was appreciative. And then the next Thanksgiving, they gave me an earlier schedule so that I could actually do Thanksgiving with my family. And it was an 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. shift. I remember that day I was stuffy and congested, kind of like I am right now. And I worked my shift. When it was time for me to go home, I went home. Like the Thanksgiving before that, it was sunny, the sun was out. This Thanksgiving, it was rainy and wet outside. But I'm grateful for the experience, for the job experience, because I learned not only how to deal with customers, I also learned how to deal with races. I dealt with almost every person there imaginable that you could imagine, because people just everyone has what do you call it? Everyone has their own way that they deal with stress, and some people are just mean. I remember not only mean, but some people are can be a little bit unhinged. I remember one time this lady came in, same lady with the blonde hair that always used to get the Marlboro cigarettes. I told her, okay, this is like I think it was like the price was 10.87. She says, I need my cigarettes. Grabbed the cigarettes and ran out the store. You know what I had to do? I had to go into my pocket and pay that money, put it in the register. I was so pissed. And it's not like they were going to arrest her or something because she was a regular customer. But you could tell that she was a little bit off. But it was It was so crazy. I remember one time I had a customer scream at me, yell at me because their credit card fell in near the gum. It was just a lot of different stuff. You had a lot of angry people. You had a lot of racist people, especially with the presidency at that time who was running for president. People felt bold enough to not only tell people about their political stance, but also where they stood as opposed to where they stood on the basis of color, you know. But anyway, that was my work experience. I hope I shed some light. Uh, you know, like this video, share, subscribe to my channel, and tell me about some of your experiences that you had in your first job. All right. And if you have a channel, I will subscribe as well. Thank you guys for listening. Take care. Have a great day. Peace.